It was supposed to be a fun, nostalgic trip. Just a bunch of old high school friends renting out a massive, slightly creepy, but ultimately charming old house for the weekend. The kind of place with 100 nooks and crannies, winding staircases, and doors that creak just right. We'd spend the first night drinking, telling stories, and generally acting like we were 17 again. On the second day, a sense of unease started to creep in. It began subtly. A misplaced set of keys. A door left ajar that someone swore they'd closed. We brushed it off as a combination of a sprawling, unfamiliar house and maybe a little too much wine the night before. But then, as evening fell, the feeling intensified. The house, which had seemed charmingly quirky in the daylight, now felt oppressive and labyrinthine. Shadows seemed to stretch and contort in unnatural ways. A cold draft would snake its way through a room with no open windows. That's when Mark, always the pragmatic one, suggested we do a head count. Just to ease our minds, he said. A simple way to prove that the isolation and the strange old house were just playing tricks on our imaginations. So we all gathered in the grand, wood-paneled living room, the fire crackling in the hearth, casting long, dancing shadows on our faces. There were 10 of us in total. We decided the easiest way to do this was to have everyone go to a separate room on the main floor, and 2 people, me and Sarah, would go room by room, check them off a list, and then lock the door behind us. It was a methodical plan, designed to eliminate any possibility of error. We wanted to be absolutely certain. We started with the library at the far end of the hall. We pushed open the heavy oak door and found Mark inside, reading an old leather-bound book. "One down," Sarah said, making a tick next to his name. I pulled the door shut, and the heavy bolt slid into place with a satisfying, definitive thud. Next was the small study. Chloe was in there, scrolling on her phone. Tick. Lock. The dining room. The kitchen. The sunroom. One by one, we went through them. Each time, we'd call out a name, get a reply, see our friend, and lock the door. The list of names was getting shorter, and a sense of relief started to wash over me. This was silly. We were all just a bit spooked, that's all. We moved faster, our initial apprehension turning into a kind of game. It was almost ridiculous. We were adults, locking our friends in rooms to prove there wasn't a ghost. We checked the pantry where Ben was hiding, laughing as we locked him in with the canned goods. We checked the small downstairs bathroom and found Liam. Tick. Lock. The process was smooth. Too smooth. We were making incredible time. In what felt like only a few minutes, we had gone through almost the entire ground floor. Every door we had checked was now locked and bolted. The hallway was silent, except for our footsteps on the creaking floorboards. We came to the last door on our list, a small storage closet under the main staircase. According to our list, only one person remained unaccounted for. Jessica, Sarah called out, her voice echoing slightly in the empty hall. We waited. Silence. A knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach again. "Jess, you in there?" I called, louder this time, rapping my knuckles on the solid wood. A faint, muffled "yeah" came from inside. Relief washed over me, so potent it was dizzying. Sarah quickly made the final tick on her list. We slid the heavy iron bolt across, securing the last door. "See," Sarah said, forcing a smile. "Everyone's accounted for. All 10 of us, safe and sound." She held up the list, every name neatly checked off. We had Don Italiano. We stood there for a moment in the quiet hallway, the row of locked doors stretching out behind us. The silence felt heavy, expectant. We had finished our count, and everyone was where they were supposed to be. It was done. It was all fine. The house was just a house. We were just tired and letting our imaginations run wild. My heart rate began to slow, the adrenaline fading. We had contained the problem, literally. We had proven that everything was normal. We both let out a little laugh, a release of the tension that had been building all evening. It was all so silly. Then, a voice came from directly behind us, a calm, familiar voice that shattered the silence and turned my blood to ice. "Hey, what are you guys doing?" it said. We both froze, our backs rigid. We didn't need to turn around. We knew that voice as well as we knew our own. Slowly, dreadfully, We turned. Standing at the end of the hall, by the entrance to the living room we'd just come from, was Jessica. She had a confused look on her face, a half-eaten apple in her hand. "I went to the kitchen to grab a snack," she said, tucking a beetie. "Did I miss something?" My eyes darted from her face to Sarah's, which was now a mask of pure terror, and then down the long, silent hallway. The hallway lined with locked doors. Every single person, including Jessica, was checked off on our list. We had heard a voice reply from inside that final closet. We had locked the door, but Jessica was standing right here, behind us. She had never been in the closet. So who, or what, had answered us from behind that door? Who had we just locked inside? The house was no longer silent. From behind the very last door we had bolted, the one under the stairs, we heard a soft, slow scratching sound begin, and then a faint, chilling giggle. We had counted everyone. We were a row in. There were 11. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more chilling tales. See you next time. I remember the smell of old wool and mothballs, the heavy darkness of the coat closet pressing in on me. We were playing hide and seek, a family tradition during our annual summer gathering at my grandparents' old house. The house itself was a character in our games, with its creaky floors, endless hallways, and more hiding spots than we could count. I'd found the perfect one, tucked away in the back of the master bedroom closet, behind my grandpa's heavy winter coats. I scrunched myself into a tight ball, my knees pulled up to my chest, and tried to control my breathing. Laughter and muffled footsteps echoed from downstairs. My cousins were good, but they'd never find me here. I was the reigning champion of hide and seek, and I intended to keep my title. Minutes stretched into what felt like an eternity. The sounds of the game faded, replaced by the quiet hum of the old house. I started to get a little bored, my legs cramping up. Maybe I'd picked a spot that was too good. Just as I was about to give up and reveal myself, the air in the closet grew cold. A shiver ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the temperature. The silence was suddenly heavy, thick with an unspoken presence. The faint scent of mothballs was replaced by something else, something old and earthy, like damp soil after a rainstorm. I held my breath, straining my ears. Had someone come into the room? Then I heard it, a faint rustle of fabric right next to me. It was so close, it felt like it was inside the closet with me. My heart hammered against my ribs. It had to be my older cousin, trying to scare me. He was always pulling pranks like this. I stayed perfectly still, determined not to give him the satisfaction of a scream. I could almost feel his smirk in the darkness. A soft, raspy whisper slithered directly into my ear. "Found you." The voice was not my cousin's. It was thin and dry, like autumn leaves skittering across pavement. It was a voice I had never heard before, ancient and chilling. Every muscle in my body locked up. This wasn't a game anymore. This was something else entirely. Raw, primal fear, the kind you only read about in stories, flooded my system. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, trapped in the suffocating darkness with that voice still echoing in my head. I don't know how long I stayed there, frozen. It could have been seconds or hours. Finally, a surge of adrenaline broke the spell. I scrambled out of the closet, tumbling over shoes and onto the bedroom floor. Tears streamed down my face, hot and fast. I didn't even bother to close the closet door behind me. I just ran. I bolted out of the bedroom, down the long hallway, and skidded to a stop at the top of the stairs. The scene below was calm. My family was gathered in the living room, sipping lemonade and chatting. The warm glow of the lamps cast a peaceful light on their faces. No one was searching. No one was calling out my name. It was as if the game had never happened. My aunt looked up and saw me, her expression shifting from relaxed to concerned. "Honey, what's wrong? You looked like you've seen a ghost." I couldn't form words. I just pointed back down the hallway, my hand trembling. In the closet, I managed to choke out, Someone was in there with me. My uncle stood up, a serious look on his face. "What are you talking about? Who was in there?" he whispered to me. I cried, the sobs now shaking my whole body. He found me. My whole family exchanged confused glances. My grandma walked over to the bottom of the stairs, her face etched with worry. "Sweetheart, come down here." "Who are you talking to?" "The person who found me," I insisted, my voice rising with hysteria. "We were playing hide-and-seek." A strange, uncomfortable silence fell over the room. It was my dad who finally broke it, his voice gentle but firm. "Son," he said slowly. "What do you mean?" "The game ended an hour ago. Everyone got tired of looking for you. We thought you'd fallen asleep somewhere." His words hit me like a physical blow. An hour ago? No. It couldn't be. I had only been in there for a few minutes. I looked from face to face, searching for any sign that this was just another prank, a bigger, more elaborate joke. But all I saw was genuine confusion and concern. My cousins, the ones I was playing with, were sitting on the couch, looking just as bewildered as the adults. "No," I whispered, the reality of the situation crashing down on me. "No, you're lying. The game wasn't over. Someone found me." My grandma's face went pale. She glanced nervously towards the upstairs hallway, then looked back at me. "Maybe it's time we stopped playing that game in this house," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I never played hide-and-seek again, not in that house. Not anywhere. To this day, I can't go into a closet without the lights on, because sometimes, when it's too quiet, I can almost hear it again. That dry, raspy whisper. A chilling reminder of the time I played a game with someone that was on part of the family. A reminder that if the game ended an hour ago, then who was it that found me? And what would have happened if I hadn't run? It's a question that still haunts my quietest moments. A whisper of fear in the back of my mind that never truly goes away. When I was a kid, our house had one strict rule. A rule so important it was practically the 11th commandment. Never, ever hide in the basement during hide-and-seek. My parents never really explained why. They'd just get this serious look on their faces and say, "It's not safe down there. Find somewhere else." Of course, being kids, that just made the basement the most tantalizing, forbidden place in the entire world. The basement wasn't your typical spooky, cobweb-filled dungeon. It was actually semi-finished. My dad had a workshop in one corner. My mom stored old photo albums on metal shelves, and there was even a beat-up old couch down there. But it was always cold, a damp, heavy cold that clung to your clothes, and the air had a weird, earthy smell, like wet soil after a storm. The single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling cast long, dancing shadows that made familiar shapes look monstrous. One sweltering summer afternoon, a bunch of us were over at my house. My best friend Liam, his little sister Chloe, and the twins from next door, Maya and Ben. We were bored out of our minds. We'd already exhausted every video game, every board game, and every other possible way to entertain ourselves indoors. Finally, Liam, ever the instigator, grinned and said, "I've got it. Let's play hide-and-seek." A collective groan went through the room. We were probably a little too old for it, but the heat had sapped all our creative energy. "Fine," I sighed, "but you're it first." As Liam turned to face the wall in the living room and started counting, my mom poked her head in. "Just remember the rule, Michael," she said, her voice firm. "Nowhere in the basement." I nodded, and she went back to the kitchen. Liam's voice echoed through the house. 98, 99, 100. "Ready or not? Here I come." The mad scramble began. I darted up the stairs and wedged myself into the linen closet, pulling towels over my head. Maya and Ben, as they always did, probably found a spot together. Chloe was small enough to fit almost anywhere. From my hiding spot, I could hear Liam's footsteps thumping through the house. He checked the downstairs closets, then under the beds. The floorboards creaked above me as he searched the second floor. A few minutes later, I heard him yell, "Found you, Chloe," followed by her giggles. One, down. The house fell silent again, except for the hum of the air conditioner and the distant drone of a lawnmower outside. And then I heard it. A soft, shuffling sound. It wasn't Liam's heavy tread. It was slower, more deliberate. My heart started to pound. The sound was coming from below me, directly below me. From the basement. At first, I thought maybe Ben or Maya had broken the rule. It would be just like them to risk it for the ultimate hiding spot. The shuffling continued. A soft scuff, scuff, scuff on the concrete floor. It sounded like someone dragging their feet, pacing back and forth. My curiosity got the better of my fear. Very slowly, I pushed the closet door open a crack. The hallway was empty. I tiptoed to the top of the main staircase. Peering down, I could see Liam peeking behind the living room couch. He definitely wasn't in the basement. I crept over to the basement door, which was at the end of the hall. It was closed, just as we'd left it. I pressed my ear against the cool wood. The sound was clearer now. Footsteps. Unmistakably. They weren't frantic, like someone trying to hide. They were calm, rhythmic, walking from one end of the basement to the other. A floorboard creaked down there, the same way it did when my dad walked over to his workbench. A cold dread washed over me. Who was down there? My dad was at work, and my mom was in the kitchen, on the other side of the house. Suddenly, a shout from downstairs made me jump. Gotcha. My Yan Ben, behind the curtains. Really? It was Liam. He'd found the twins. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Okay, so everyone was accounted for. Chloe, Maya, Ben. I was the only one left. There was no one in the basement. It must have been my imagination, the house settling, the pipes making noise. That had to be it. But the footsteps didn't stop. They kept going. Pace, pace, pace. Turn. Pace, pace. Turn. It was a steady, unnerving rhythm. It felt like whatever was down there knew I was listening, like it was performing for me. My skin crawled. The logical part of my brain was screaming that this was impossible, but my ears couldn't deny what they were hearing. I backed away from the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. I had to get out of the house. I couldn't be the last one found, not with that sound echoing from below. I abandoned my hiding spot and sprinted down the main stairs, making as much noise as I could. Here I am, Liam. You win, I yelled, trying to sound cheerful. Liam looked up, surprised. What? You're giving up? I was just about to check the attic. The others were gathered on the couch, sipping glasses of lemonade my mom had brought out. They were all... They were all there. Liam, Chloe, Maya, Ben. Everyone was accounted for. They were all looking at me, confused by my sudden appearance. Hust? I don't want to play anymore, I said, my voice trembling slightly. My mom came in from the kitchen. Everything all right, sweetie? You look like you've seen a ghost. I just shook my head, unable to explain. How could I tell them I heard someone walking in a locked, empty basement? They'd think I was crazy. We all sat in the living room, trying to decide what to do next. But I couldn't focus. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of being listened to, and even over the sound of our chatter and the television we eventually turned on. I could still hear it, just barely. A faint, rhythmic shuffling from below our feet. The sound of someone pacing, waiting. I never told anyone what I heard that day. Not my friends, not even my parents. But I never forgot. Years later, when we were packing up to move out of that house, I stood at the top of the basement stairs one last time. It was broad daylight. The house was empty and echoing. Movers were shouting outside. I listened. For a long moment, there was only silence. And then, faintly, from the bottom of the stairs, came this sound. A single, soft scuff on the concrete floor, as if something was saying goodbye. We left, and I never looked back. But sometimes, when it's too quiet, I can still hear it in my memory. The footsteps in the basement, pacing forever in a house we left long ago. I've always loved playing hide-and-seek. It was me and my older brother Leo's favorite game. Ever since we were little kids, it was our ritual, a tradition we kept alive even as we got older. Our house was perfect for it. It was this old, sprawling Victorian place our parents bought for a steal. It had creaky floorboards, a dusty attic, a musty basement, and more nooks and crannies than you could count. It was a hide-and-seek paradise. That evening, the sun was setting, casting long, eerie shadows across the rooms. It was my turn to hide. Leo was the seeker, and he was notoriously good at it. He had this uncanny ability to find me, no matter how clever my hiding spot was. So, this time, I was determined to outsmart him. I needed the perfect spot, one he'd never think of. Downstairs, I could hear him start to count down, his voice echoing through the old house. 1, 2, 3. The familiar numbers sent a thrill of excitement and anticipation through me. I tiptoed up the grand, winding staircase, the wood groaning under my feet. My heart was pounding, a mix of adrenaline and the sheer fun of the game. 4, 5. His voice was getting louder, which meant he was probably moving toward the bottom of the stairs, ready to start his search the second he hit 10. I had to be quick. I scurried down the upstairs hallway, my mind racing. The closet in the guest room. No, too obvious. Behind the curtains in the study. He always checked there first. 6, 7. Time was running out. Then it hit me. My bedroom. Under my own bed. It was so simple, so cliché, that he'd probably overlook it. He'd assume I'd go for a more elaborate hiding place, somewhere far from my own room. It was the perfect double bluff. I darted into my room, the last rays of sunlight painting stripes on the floor through the blinds. I dropped to my hands and knees and shimmied under the bed, pulling the dusty bed skirt down to conceal myself completely. It was dark and cramped, and the air was thick with the smell of old wood and forgotten dust bunnies. My breathing was shallow, trying to stay as silent as possible. From my hiding spot, I had a strange, muffled view of the world. I could see the legs of my dresser and the bottom edge of my closed bedroom door. The house was quiet now, except for the faint, muffled sound of Leo's counting from downstairs. It felt like I was in my own little secret world, hidden away from everything. 8. His voice was a low rumble, vibrating through the floorboards. I held my breath, a wide grin spreading across my face. This was it. I was going to win. He would search the entire house, the attic, the basement, every single closet, and he'd never think to look right under my own bed. I imagined his frustration, his eventual call of defeat. 9. The sound was clearer now, closer. He must have reached the top of the stairs. My heart hammered against my ribs. Stay calm. Stay quiet. Don't make a sound. I tucked my knees closer to my chest, making myself as small as possible. The dust was starting to tickle my nose, and I fought back the urge to sneeze. Just a few more seconds. 10. The final number hung in the air, a deep, resonant sound that seemed to make the whole house vibrate. The game was on. I braced myself, listening for the sound of his footsteps, the creak of doors opening and closing as he began his methodical search. I was ready for the wait, but the footsteps never came. Instead, a new sound filled the silence, a soft, chilling whisper right beside me. Right there, in the darkness under the bed with me. It was a voice I didn't recognize, a voice that was not my brother's. It was smooth and cold, like air from a freezer, and it finished the countdown. Ready or not? A scream cut in my throat, but no sound came out. My blood ran cold, and every muscle in my body locked up in pure, unadulterated terror. The game was over, but a new one had just begun, and I had a terrifying feeling that this time, I wasn't just hiding from my brother. Something else had been counting along with him, and now it had found me.